Hey, welcome to Life in the Leadership Lane. I'm your host, Bruce Waller, where I am talking to leaders that are making a difference in the workplace and in our communities. What do they do to get started, and what are they doing to stay there? And today, I'm getting to talk to Erica Rooney. Erica is the Senior Vice President of Employee Experience at Blue Acorn, ICI, which is actually located in North Carolina. And we were introduced by a mutual friend, Dwayne Clark, who is a volunteer leader for North Texas SHRM. And I'm so excited to have you on the show. Welcome to Life in the Leadership Lane.
Wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me. And hey, Dwayne.
Yeah, Dwayne. So for those who don't know, Dwayne Clark, he's an HR pro. I think you both worked together before. He is also the conference director this year for North Texas SHRM. So I know he has his hands full. They just got finished up with the conference. I know they did a great job. So definitely shout out to Dwayne.
Yes, definitely. He's awesome.
So I am super excited to have you on the show. And we're going to talk leadership. We're going to talk about employee experience. We're going to talk about some personal growth plans. I mean, I'm super excited about all of this, but I'd like to start the show by you sharing a little bit about your organization, Blue Acorn ICI, and how you serve your customers. Would you share that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a leading digital customer experience company. And fun fact, we were recently acquired by Infosys. So now we are a part of a large global corporation. But we have about 350 team members, different digital customer experience professionals, from data scientists to e-commerce experts, designers, and strategists. And what we do is we partner with brands to build and optimize their customer experience by using data points, content, D2C services. And through our work, we elevate those brands to the top of their categories and unlock their growth potential.
I love that. It's almost like behind the scenes, helping customers elevate. And so, no, that's fantastic. I love that. I want to start, we're going to talk about, employee experience. We're going to talk about a lot of different things, but I always like to start the show by you sharing a little bit about your story. And I would love to hear the Erica Rooney story. Where did you grow up, and how in the world did you get into leadership, in particular in HR?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am born and raised in Gainesville, Florida. So there is Shands Hospital there, and then there's the University of Florida. So go Gators. I will start with that. I am a diehard Gator. Grew up going to school and the games all in Gainesville. And, I never really knew what I wanted to do when I grew up, is what they always like to say. But I knew that I loved helping people. So I actually started my college career at UF, and I was a nursing major because I loved helping people.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of very quickly, I don't love blood and guts. I knew that nursing wasn't going to be for me. Knew that I loved helping people. And so I really tried to figure that out. And I met with my college mentor, who really suggested health education and behavior and community health, workplace health. So I kind of dove in on that, and I really honed in and focused on corporate wellness. And all of these pieces started falling into place. And so while I was focusing and studying on corporate wellness, I took a job as a personal trainer. I got certified, started working at a local gym, and really found that I loved helping people meet their health and wellness needs and hit their physical fitness goals. And that really connected with me. And so I did that throughout school. And part of my program at UF was that I had to do an internship. And I found a corporate health and wellness internship with Verizon in Greenville, South Carolina. So I moved to Greenville, South Carolina for a semester, started working at Verizon as an intern, and loved it, knew that's what I wanted to do. Went back to UF, finished up my master's degree in health education and behavior, and then hounded my old boss at Verizon for a job. And he basically said, great, we'd love to have you. You were a great intern. Here's some locations where you can go. One of them was Cary, North Carolina. So I accepted the job, moved to Cary, North Carolina, and worked in Verizon Health and Wellness for 8 years. And during my time there, number one, that's where I met Dwayne. And then number two, I was fulfilled because I was helping people. But the longer I was there, the more complacent I was in my role. You know, it was becoming too easy for me, and I really wanted challenge and growth opportunities. And I did. I became a leader there. I became a senior leader there. I started getting more involved in things like recruiting and interviewing within my team. And so I started taking on different challenges like that. And just after a while, I really kind of saw the writing on the wall that there was no more growth opportunity for me at Verizon in this capacity. And that if I wanted to continue to grow and excel my career, I needed to broaden my horizon at what I was looking at. So I started really looking into more HR specific avenues. And that's when I got my SHRM. I studied, I got my PMP certification as well, and kind of took all of those things and then took a very traditional HR business partner role in healthcare arena and just dove headfirst into HR there. And at first, people were questioning if that move kind of from the health and wellness realm to the corporate HR world was going to fulfill me the way helping everybody meet their health and fitness goals would. And it absolutely translated, because I was now helping individuals in their careers, and I was helping them career path and grow in development or resolve issues that they were having with their team members. So I was still getting that basic, what fulfills me, which is helping people, which is what fulfilled me when I was in corporate wellness, which is what fulfilled me when I was a personal trainer in college. So it really just kind of continued along the growth and development path. And I've held different roles, from traditional HR business partner roles to more specific in engagement management roles. And now most recently in my role as the leader for the employee experience team at Blue Acorn ICI.
Yeah, that is absolutely fantastic. I was actually just thinking about, a common thread among leaders that are really making impact. They seem to have the term helping people in that story. But one of the things you mentioned, a key word here that I heard was you got complacent at a time. I mean, the thing about it is that you found something you really loved, right? In the training, the wellness, you just felt like you're really helping people. And then you got to a complacent. And I think that a lot of people get to that point, but like, do you remember like thinking back, and I want to touch on something else too here in just a second, but do you remember like that feeling, and what made you, like what drove you to say, you know what, I'm not getting exactly what I'm wanting here, I've got to move on? Do you remember that?
So I think this is kind of interesting, because if you go back even further, like Verizon was my first big job out of college. And I remember being so in love with the role at that time that I was like, I can't believe that I am so lucky that I found the career and the job I'm going to retire from. Like, that's how bought in I was, and how much I was in it to win it. And I mean, it served me very well for many years, and I was able to learn a lot of new skills. But, I think it's interesting, because with every person and how they move through their career, growth and development and challenges are really great for them at times, and other times they need more stability. And for me, I had my first child. I'd gotten married and had my son, and I was working from either like 5:30 to 2 or 11 to 7 p.m. And that didn't really jive with having a newborn at home. I didn't love it. So I was looking for a little bit more of that stable corporate America part of it. But I also knew that where I got to my role at Verizon, I was the senior coordinator for the entire team on the wireline side, which was a lot of people. But it just got to a point where there was no moving up from there. And I really had just nailed everything down. And even though I wanted the stability in my home life, I still wanted that challenge and growth opportunities and something different for my family too. I wanted to be able to work remote if I needed to. And when you're doing personal training, that's not really a remote role, So all of those factors just kind of came together. And it took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. You know, it took a lot of time because I got my SHRM certification. So that was one big check off. Then I got PMP. And then I really had to break into the traditional HR roles, because a lot of people would look at my resume and say, you're really into wellness and fitness. And I see how all of these things kind of came together for you in the HR perspective, but like, I'm really looking for a traditional HR generalist, business partner, manager, whatever. So it took a lot of time. But then kind of once you're in it, you are in it. And it really, you can see how it connects and how HR really is in every aspect of what every company does, whether they realize it or not.
I'm glad you shared that, because I've actually had different people reach out to me. They're wanting to break into HR, but they are looking at their own resume and they're having that self-doubt.
Yeah.
Like, nobody really wants to talk to me. I have this marketing background, or I have, this finance background, and I'm really wanting to get, and what you basically said is, look, I mean, it's a long road, but you have to be willing to dive in, go all in. I had a similar situation. My parents were entrepreneurs. They owned a bowling center, and in the bowling center, you work nights and weekends. And I was looking for more stability as I was raising my children. And so whenever I got a little complacent.
Yeah.
And so I decided to kind of take that move 20 years ago. And I didn't have any experience at the time. And I just started from the ground up. But I think that that's going to resonate. Listen, if you're listening to this right now, get ready to take some notes, because I'm telling you, this is going to be really, really good. You mentioned something earlier too, and that was, and I always like to talk about this, because you mentioned that you had talked to a mentor, and I think you said during college, and helped you kind of move towards a certain direction. I always like to ask, you've been doing this for a long time, and it seems to me that leaders that are really making impact, life in the leadership lane, they have people that have helped them get to certain, and we call them mentors, we call them sponsors. I was just curious if you would, if you've had some people that have impacted your journey, and if you could share kind of what was that all about?
Yeah, I would say I've always really had a mentor in place, and I've had to do a little bit of seeking out, and some of them have also happened organically. But I had my mentor in college, which was assigned to me. So that was a great start, because when you're young in college, it's kind of hard to navigate. But they really asked me the right questions and forced me to look internally to see what I really wanted to do. And I love this question, because I always have a drive to do the best and be the best and get the highest achieving whatever. And that's not always necessary, And I remember talking to my college mentor at that time, and I was like, well, I need to get my PhD now. And she said, well, why? What do you want to do? Do you want to teach? Do you want to do research? And I was like, oh no, I don't want to do all of that. She goes, so what do you need your PhD for? And I was like, I don't know. It just sounds like I need it. And she's like, I'm not going to tell you not to do it, but I am going to tell you to think about it before you do. And when I really sat down and thought about what I wanted it to look like, I was like, you're right. I really don't need to get a PhD. Like, I really do need to put more of my focus on getting into the workforce and starting my experience right now. So that was my first college mentor. And then after that, when I really got into the HR world, I was very fortunate that I had a wonderful boss that really just challenged me when I came into that new HR role, and really got me into HR by learning by doing, and just kind of throwing me into the fire and asking all the probing questions, not just giving me the answers. So she was very challenging. Her name's Rebecca Blake. She's now a chief people officer out in Texas. And she's still a mentor of mine to this day. We still talk regularly, or if I have a question or I want someone else's opinion on it, I run it by her. I give her a quick call, and she'll do the same for me sometimes. And she'll say, "What do you want? What are you doing about this? Or what have you heard about this?" And we kind of talk through different scenarios. And then I had a really great mentor. He was a VP of HR and legal in my last role. His name's Andy Parker, and he taught me to do things before I'm ready to do them. You know what I mean? And one of those things was at my last company, he really recommended me to apply for an open vice president role. And I was like, you're crazy. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he was like, number one, it's great experience. Number two, it gets you in front of the right people, you know? And he taught me that it's not just as easy and black and white to see it, but like you really have to be strategic in all of these moves and all of these open opportunities. And you might not be ready. And this might not even be the opportunity for you. But now all of those people that you just interviewed with know that you want to grow, and they've met you and they've seen you and they know what you're capable of. And maybe there's another opportunity out there that is right for you that now they're going to think about you for. So yeah, I've always organically just had these leaders that I've been fortunate to have come into my life, and I make an effort to stay in touch with each of them, to meet with each of them regularly, and to just, you know, always keep touch on them, because I know that if I have a question, I can go to them with it and at least get some sound advice, you know, or make me think, you know, they can all ask the right probing questions. So I think having a mentor is extremely valuable. I love extending myself to anyone at any time, whether it's for consistent mentoring, or if somebody just looks at my resume and says, you know, hey, I saw you were in fitness and then you transitioned to HR. How did you do it? And just talking them through, because everybody needs that, you know, and it's always helpful to hear from what other people have already learned from.
That is so good. What a gift. I tell you, I mean, we don't realize it. A lot of times we don't realize it until we look back to the gifts. But when you're talking about, you know, a mentor that ask the right questions. I mean, I've always talked to different people. When I've talked to people in college, I'm like, look for those people that will challenge you, that will ask questions, that will push you. And you're talking about, you know, I think it was Rebecca, talking about challenging you. And here you are still today being able, you know, you pick up the phone and you'll call her and connect. And then I love the advice about doing things before you're ready. So when I think about that, I think about a couple of things. Number one, I think about, well, the first thing I think about is belief. Like, he is like installing this belief in you. You may have a little bit of self-doubt because you haven't approached it yet, or someone in that role. But, you know, when someone says do things before they're saying, hey, look, just do it. That's how you learn, right?
I mean, when I look back, that was a great experience. You know, I was interviewing for a role that my direct bosses were interviewing for, you know, and so it put me in uncomfortable situations. You know, it put me in a situation where the majority of the existing HR team thought, what in the world is she doing? You know, she's crazy. But it wasn't just about getting the role. You know, there were so many other factors to it. It was about connecting with the right people, getting out of your comfort zone, forcing me to think more about strategy and from a higher level, and all of those things. But you're right, like at that point, Andy Parker really instilled, you know, such a positive experience for me, because I was like, wow, this man really believes in me, and he sees my future potential, and that alone was a gift, you know, just in my journey to date, and really encouraged me to continue to push myself.
If for anybody listening, if you have a chance to surround yourself with people that believe in you, just do that all day long.
All day.
Because that all day. Man, that's incredible. Hey, let's talk leadership 2021. I mean, 2020 is a heavy year. We are past that. We are now in Q2. Well, yes, we are still navigating through a pandemic. But I'm just wondering, I want to talk a little bit about that. But first thing I want to ask, I like to ask this question is, you know, when someone says, hey, what is leadership? How do you typically define that?
You know, for me, and this kind of goes all the way back to helping people, but it's about servant leadership, and it's about building up all of the people around you and making sure that their needs always come first, and that you are there to serve and support them, however that looks. And that's going to look different from teams and from person to person. And you have to be able to individualize each relationship that you have to fit your team members' needs, wants, and desires, and work with them on their level. You know what I mean? So it's really about having that servant leadership, and how can I serve you, and what can I do for you today? You know, every meeting that I have with my team members, the last thing I always say to them is just, let me know what I can do for you.
Mm.
That can be anything, like something huge as in I really need your support on this project, or something so small as, hey, I'm really swamped. Would you mind sending these offer letters today? And I'll jump in and do any of it. You know what I mean? But that's always the question that I end any conversation with. And sometimes I talk to my team members 3-4 times a day, and I want them to understand and know that that question is not a formality or just a sign off. It is truly, tell me what I can do for you today.
I love that. Oh, that's absolutely fantastic. So as I was reading off your title, typically you hear, the standard is a vice president of human resources, but in today's times, we're hearing a lot of different titles, and your title is the vice president of the employee experience. By the way, I love that. I was just wondering, what is that all about? How did that come about?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I also love watching the morphing of HR throughout the history, right? And
yeah, back in the day it was what, personnel department, right?
Yeah, something like that, and then it was human resources, and then you saw all this chief people officer because it just felt friendlier. And then you had a lot of engagement, and then now there's a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion. But for myself in this role, my leader and I were actually talking about it, and he was like, "What do you think your role should be? Should it be chief people officer? Like, I don't know. We got to figure this out." And I said, and number one, we're a customer experience company, so I kind of honed in on that, and I said, we focus so much on the customer experience. I said, but my role as the head of HR is about the employee experience and making sure they are taken care of because they are my customers. These are the people I'm here for. And so he was like, senior vice president, employee experience. And I really, when I talk to people about this and like, what does that mean? Because people are like, what does that mean? It sounds fancy. And I said, from the moment that somebody clicks apply on our website, for all of those milestones and interactions that they have with the company, with our leaders, with my team in particular, that they are having the best experience that they can. And even when they exit the company, And so we do a lot of checkpoints. We do a lot of surveying. We do candidate surveys for people who apply, even if they don't get the position. We want to know, how is their experience moving through the interview process? How can we improve? What should we be doing the same? What should we be switching up? Then we do it again through the onboarding. Then we have our 30, 60, 90-day touch points. Then we have a 6-month touch point, and then we have an annual touch point. And we have all of these different touch points to just check in. Because especially in 2021, when we're all still remote, we've got people now who've been working together remotely for an entire year. How is that going for you? Because this is for everybody. And I promise you, we're not going to get it right the first time, but we're here to listen, and we're here to try to figure it out. And we're here to always try to do better, So it's really about just crafting these experiences that are positive, that leave them feeling like, maybe I had a hard day at work today, but it was still a good day because of the company I work for and the people I work with. So yeah, it's really about just focusing on that holistic employee experience. And then, when the time comes for them to leave, maybe they're taking on a different role somewhere else or switching careers, that when they look back, they would say, yeah, I'd work for Blue Acorn ICI again. I had great experience there.
That's awesome. I love that. It feels like we've been remote for years.
Yeah.
I wonder, do you find yourself leading any different? How's that experience been for you?
Yeah, so it's definitely interesting too, because I came into my role at Blue Acorn ICI right when everybody went remote immediately. So I have always, with my team now, been a remote manager, which has had its challenges because I didn't have an established precedence with any of them. I couldn't go on site, go out to lunch with them, meet them. So we had a lot of one-on-ones in the beginning, to just kind of try to get to know each other. How do you work? And then that again kind of became this more tailored experience. I have some employees that they like their scheduled one-on-ones Tuesday at 11 o'clock every Tuesday. They come to me with their agenda. That's how they function. Then I have other people that they're like, I just want to pick up the phone and call you whenever I have a question. I don't need a standing meeting. works for me too. So then as we kind of learned and grew together, we kind of found our groove per se. But I always reiterate to my team too, is like, we are all in development and we are all in growth. And this is a landscape that none of us have ever navigated before. So if something ever changes for you, or, I don't know, it could be anything, right? Like, we're all moving through this together, but if anything ever changes, we just need to have that transparent conversation about it so that we can pivot and adjust as necessary and then keep moving forward. So I really try to hone in on all of my team members that right now communication and transparency is hands down the most important thing, because we're not together on the daily basis, and there may go 1 or 2 days where I don't see them on a video call face to face. And I have to trust that they're good, and if they're not, I have to trust that they're going to reach out to me and we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, communication more important today than like ever.
Yeah.
One of the things you talked earlier about when you were describing leadership, you talked about approaching it from each individual's viewpoint. And I love that, because everyone has, everyone is unique. Everyone has their strengths and in different areas. And one of the things that you and I talked a little bit about before the podcast was about personal growth plans. Yeah. And me, I get chills when I start talking about personal development, because I'm always interested in what others are doing to get better. And so I was just wondering if you could share a little bit about what your views are on personal growth. I can tell you are always working on your personal development, but have you been able to establish that in your organization, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so that was one of the things that my employee experience team, we really saw as something that was super imperative just for the company, that we have a method that people can utilize if they want to, And so we established what we call a personal growth plan. And we talk to our employees about this, when they're a new hire, and then we say, this is available to you. We'll revisit it. We're going to give you 6 months to kind of get your job under your feet and understand your role and responsibilities. But then we're going to bring this back to you. And if it's something you want to do, we really encourage you to do it. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to. But it is a great way to outline, where do you think your career should go? How do you think you should get there? How can your manager help you get there? And then your manager sits down and collaborates on that document with you. So let's say you enter the organization as a project coordinator and you're like, you know what, like, I really want to be a project manager in a year, and I want to have my PMP. And, after that, like, I want to manage people, and great, let's set it up. Let's figure it out. So what kind of training courses do you need to get your PMP? What kind of timeline does that look like? Like, let's set these tangible goals, and we really map it out with them. And then in partnership with whatever programs we may have. So we have education, assistance for different certifications and things like that. We get the company behind it, we support them, and then hopefully move them through to a successful transition, But I'll say, like, for me and my team, it has been a really great tool to understand all of the personalities, but also what aspects of HR do they love? What aspects do they not love? Because there's so much when it comes to HR. You've got recruiting, performance development, learning management, diversity. I mean, the list goes on and on. So I really encouraged all of my people to outline what areas they were like, were their strength, where were they really solid in it? What were areas that they really haven't had a lot of exposure to? And then what were areas of interest for them? Because, depending on their career goals, some of them want to be very well-rounded HR business partners, HR directors moving forward, so if that's the case, we need to make sure that they have the exposure and the experience in all the areas. But it really made it clear to me and outlined to me that, like, okay, this person's really interested in culture and diversity, equity, inclusion. So when those opportunities come down the pipeline, I'm going to talk to her about it, And then I have another individual on my team who's really interested in kind of like the marketing aspects of it. So knowing that, she takes all the cool things that my culture focused person does and makes really awesome infographics and the calendars and the newsletters, and and plays to her strengths and what she loves to do. So it really kind of just helps me identify all of the things that they love to do so that they can continue to grow and develop those areas. But then also the areas that we need to give them exposure to. So for example, one person doesn't have a lot of experience in employee relations. So whenever something comes down the pipeline to me, I include her in on those for some exposure, and we really try to round it out. But it's been a really great tool to help them develop, but then also to feel very supported. We go back to that mentoring thing. Now they feel supported. They're getting the opportunities that they are interested in. They're also getting the exposure to the things that they haven't had a lot of exposure to in the past, and rounding themselves out as HR professionals. But they're getting that support that they need from their leader to grow and develop. And I've told every single person on my team that if they are in the same position on my team in 2 years, like, I have not done my job as a leader.
Oh man, that is so good. It's almost like it's saying, hey, this is an open door, right? It's opening the door for you. And so for me and you and people that are really into personal development, they want to really grow. That is really super cool. But what about, and I'm just curious, there's probably, I love how you said that you don't just push it down. You don't just push it down people's throat. I mean, you basically, people come into the organization, you do an introduction, and then when it's time, they can opt in for that. I'm just curious, do you get a majority of people that want to opt in, or is it kind of mixed, or your thoughts?
It's a little mixed, and it depends on where people are at in their life and where they're at in their career, and who they are as a person, what they want to take on during their first year. So, people who come in kind of at that senior manager, director level or above, they're pretty good about driving themselves. So they don't always feel necessary to put it in place. Some of them do. Some of them say, look, I just have these conversations and that's how I roll. Fine by me, but we have a lot of other people that it really helps them map it out. And it helps them with the communication aspect of it. So a lot of people are not, their biggest advocate when it comes to those things. So it helps them advocate for their career desires and their career goals. And then the other thing I always like to note on too is that it's not always the right time in your life for growth and development. If you're a new parent and you just had twins, you're not trying to get another certification. You're trying to survive, and so maybe you need to have 2 years where your career is really stable and really calm. And then you can start thinking about the next phase, so you've got to kind of think about all of those aspects, that it's not always the right time,
That is such a great point. So my daughter has 2 children, a 2 and a 4-year-old. And their house got damaged during the winter storms here. And so they moved in with us while it was getting repaired, and probably for a couple months. And I was telling my wife, I don't get near as much stuff done now because I am busy. I'm busy with them. And so I get that part. And I'm glad you said that, because there's some people listening right now that are young parents, or the season just isn't right. And basically the message there is, hey, it's okay. It's when the season's right, that's the time to opt in, right?
Absolutely. And not to get stressed out if the season isn't right, that these things do take time. And, maybe it's not young kids, maybe you've had a complete career change, and maybe it was a lateral move, but now you're learning a new industry or something else. Like, those are all forms of growth and development, but it doesn't necessarily have to be this climbing the ladder hierarchical thing. It can be learning new skills, stuff like that. But yeah, I remember when we had our 2 small kids, and, my husband, who's a project manager, was originally going to get his PMP at that time. And he was like, I cannot do this. I said, I don't blame you. Take a beat. And when the time is right, you'll get back into it. And that's what he did, so I think those are key aspects to remember.
That's fantastic. One of the things I noticed that on LinkedIn, that you also participated in a LinkedIn learning around culture. And which I love that. And I can see you doing that. I mean, you're continuously trying to figure out ways to develop as a leader so you can share with others. I'm just curious how you shape culture in this new world of work. I mean, we're probably not always going to be in a remote, but I think we're going to have some type of hybrid.
I think there's definitely going to be a type of hybrid, and especially in the industry that we are in, where we are not just surviving, we are thriving in this remote. It's really changed the way we've worked. But I love to do the LinkedIn learnings because I think that culture is such a huge topic, and there are so many ways that you can go about it. And it's also more challenging than ever right now, because we are remote, because there is a lot of unrest in the world right now. There's a lot of topics that have been brought to light, and really kind of force people to examine what that culture looks like. And then, of course, Blue Acorn ICI in general is in a unique spot because we were originally different locations that were brought together. So we had different cultures across the board that we were pulling together. So one thing that we did is we created what we call the cultural committee, and it is led by the person on my team who is very interested in diversity, equity, inclusion. And they meet every month to talk about different diversity, equity, and inclusion events, because inclusion is a very strong core value that we have at Blue Acorn ICI. So we like to map out what they are and how do we want to celebrate it, or what do we want it to look like? And we get the involvement of our team members in some of those initiatives. But we're always looking on how do we grow and change it and switch. So even just yesterday, we talked about having a book club, and how would that look in the remote world, and how do we want that to formulate? But when you talk about the culture of a company, you really have to make sure that all of your leaders really buy into whatever those core values are. So for us, we're very big on being customer focused, employee focused, inclusion, and how does that infiltrate into each group? Because it's not the same, but being able to go back to those core values and always have that at the heart of every interaction that you have.
I love that. One of the things I like, this is a pretty big audience of HR professionals and business leaders in general. You're talking about that, but I want to know what your message would be to, because you mentioned the word, you mentioned about how all your leaders need to buy into that, right? So for those that, they could be at your level, or they could be at a director level, or even intern level. How do you typically coach people up when it comes to developing influence in the workplace or getting buy-in? Like if one of your team members said, "Hey, I want to we need to make this happen." What are some different tips or strategies or things they need to be able to get buy-in? Because a lot of times what I hear is that, oh man, leadership does, they don't really listen to what I have to say, or I've tried that before. And so now I'm like, we tried that before, it just doesn't work. What are some things that people can do, or what do you do to get influence or get buy-in when it comes to the C-suite?
Yeah, so I'm a specific examples kind of person.
I love that. I love that.
I think that when you can give specific examples, and this could be buy-in for something, it could be when getting or receiving feedback, all of these things, when you can cite specific examples and how they impact, how those, activities or whatever it is, what the impact is on that, that's how you get the buy-in. And I'll use feedback as an example, right? If I was like, Bruce, listen, your communication, it's terrible. You would be like, I don't understand, Erica, we just spent an hour talking, was back and forth. It felt great. And I could be like, and then you're leaving feeling more confused than ever. I'm definitely not bought into whatever you were saying. But if I come to you and I say, Bruce, for the future, if you came to me with these 5 questions ahead of time, then I could plan these things out and then we could talk about the impact. Then you're likely to get a better result. You know what I mean? So a lot of times people come in with this big picture, or just like, I don't think this team is working well together. We have to get them working well together. Well, what do you mean? Why are they not working well together? What have you seen? What makes you believe that? And you know, really kind of go at it with those specific examples. But I would also say, on the flip side of that, treat every idea or thought that you have as a hypothesis to be proven right or wrong, right? Because your job as a leader should be to ask the probing questions to gain insight to whatever idea or thought it is that you have. You know, so if somebody comes to you and says, this is, you know, the way we should be tackling this problem, the question isn't yes, you're right, or no, you're wrong. The question is, tell me why you think that way. You know, and walking through it, posing different opinions, and then getting to the answer that is best suited for whatever environment you're in.
That is gold. That is absolutely fantastic. I love that.
It's easier said than done, too.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean,
it's to always be right.
No, you're right. And it's the hard work. You have to be willing to do the hard work, right? When they talk about do the research, bring the data, find the right problem, all of that. There's work. There's work involved there. But if
there's work there.
Yeah.
And it's a mindset shift too, especially when it's a mindset shift to move away from I am right and this is how things should be done, to having this open-mindedness, like I need to this is what I think. Yeah. But like, let's figure out if I know this to be true or not. Yeah. Let's treat it as that hypothesis.
Yeah. Oh no, I absolutely love that. And I know there's some people listening right now that are thinking, you know what, I need to look at that from a different angle. I'm curious. I was, one of the things I do enjoy interviewing guests is I get, go on LinkedIn and kind of review a little bit. And one of the things I noticed about your LinkedIn were the recommendations. And there was some and so I started scrolling through all there, and I just, these words just kept coming up. Highly motivated, extremely talented, knowledgeable. And I always like to ask this question, what drives you as a leader?
Oh gosh. I love feeling like I'm making a difference, and I love helping people, so at the end of my day, if I've helped somebody either in their personal growth and development, or even just resolve an employee relations issue, all of that really drives me. But, I'm a woman, I'm in the workforce, I have 2 small kids, one of which is a daughter. So showing them that I have a seat at the executive table, and I speak at the executive table, not just that I'm sitting there, but that I participate. It's really important for me, for both my daughter and my son, to see that and to understand that women have that place in the workforce. So those are things that drive me. But yeah, just self-growth has always been such a big part of my life, and something I've always been just internalized in. So I think it's just a part of my DNA, a part of my fiber, who I am.
I love how you share about modeling, not just for your children, but just for people in general, showing that, hey, look, this is how you do it, right? You work hard and you do all of these things, and good things will happen. So I want to kind of, in this segment, I want to end on this part, and that is, for those that are listening, what is, I don't know, a tip, 1 or 2 tips you would typically share for people that are aspiring to one day be the vice president of employee experience or a head of HR? What's one of the things that you would share that they should consider on that journey?
Gosh, honestly, 3 things really jumped to mind.
Okay. All right.
I can't keep it to just one.
That's
but
awesome.
The first one would be never stop learning. Okay. Right? So that was something that I got my PMP, I got my SHRM, I read motivational books, I read books by different CEOs and leaders. And, if you only are taking one little nugget from each of those things, that's something else in your toolbox. So never stop learning is one of my big things. And I do read something every single day that is a motivational book or, somehow geared towards HR, just to kind of keep me focused on that leadership mindset and to keep that at the front of my mind. And I actually do that at the beginning of the day so that I can start my way.
I love that. It's a great practice. Love that.
Yep. And then the second thing is never underestimate the power of networking. You know what I mean? Most of the people out there want to help other people and they want to connect, especially people who are in leadership roles, because we've not always been in these leadership roles and somebody had to hold our hand and get us there. So just reach out. I know I'm always open to have a conversation when somebody reaches out to me on LinkedIn to say, hey, I saw your profile or I heard you on this podcast and I really wanted to just bounce some things off of you. I will always find 30 minutes in my week to sit down and have a discussion. So never underestimate the power of networking. And then the third thing, and I've already mentioned this, but don't wait until you're ready or don't wait until the situation is perfect, because sometimes done is better than perfect. And, you may not have the best outcome, but you've learned something along the way, or maybe it does turn out exactly perfect, but don't just sit there and wait for the opportunity to be 100% right. Do it before you're ready, learn from that experience and just keep putting one foot in front of the other.
That is, oh man, that is so good. I remember I had the CHRO on for Alchemy Technologies, Adrienne Court, and she talked about the concept of OTL, and that's over the line. And she's like, so many people wait until they get over the line to do something. And she's like, listen, if you can just get 85% there, go. Just go. And that's what you're saying. I love that. I'm going to repeat these just real quick. So, and I'm going to put these as show notes. Never stop learning, and never underestimate the power of networking. That is so good. I always like to say your network is your net worth. And then lastly, don't wait. Don't wait until you're ready. Just go. Right. Oh man, that is so good. Oh, write that down, folks. This is really, really good. Hey, I want to ask you before we move on, was there, I always like to ask about purpose, and you've shared so much here, but was there so on this journey to where you are today, was there a moment, something happened that you said, oh man, I love what I do? Or has it just been a lot of little things over time?
There've been so many little things over time that have just been so value adding, and when you're in HR, every day is not a great day. You just have to go in there knowing that. But
right.
I have had some pivotal moments in my career where employees have come to me and they said, I've never trusted HR. You weren't here for the people. That's always my experience, but working with you has totally changed my mindset. And I trust you and I know you're here for me and I know you have my back. And to have those individual moments with people, where you can see how you are positively impacting their life and making a difference, those are the moments that really kind of give you the warm and fuzzies, when you have those, even the small opportunities, when you're offering a job to somebody who's been out of work for 6 months, awesome, you've made the connection, you've found someone with a great skill set that you're going to have on your team, which is a win for your company, but wow, you really gave them this whole new life now because they don't have to worry about not having a job, so it's just little things like that.
I love that. I love how you included the word trust in there. I think that's so important. Whenever you can take that wall down and people say, you know what, I trust you. Now I look at your role, or in this particular case, I look at HR differently as a partner versus just, HR or compliance or whatever the case may be. And so you're doing some fantastic things. And I really, oh man, there is so much here that we're all going to learn from and grow from. And I just appreciate you sharing that. Hey, I want to just shift over to kind of the last part of the show, and that's called It's Time to Accelerate. And I like to just ask you some fun questions. First question I like to ask, I mean, I know you mentioned a book earlier. Would you rather read a book or listen to a podcast?
Oh gosh, I would rather read books, but because I do have small children, there are a lot of podcasts.
I love it. Oh my God. That is so fantastic. Hey, what are you grateful for?
Oh, health, first and foremost,
Mhm.
and a healthy family and, opportunity.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So we talked a little bit about 2020. It's been hard. We're into 2021. I'm just curious what you're most excited about in 2021.
Oh gosh, just the continued growth and success.
Mhm.
It's just, I can see all of my team members are kind of on this, this ledge where they're ready to take the next step. Some of them are getting certifications, some are learning new skills, and we're all kind of in process right now. So just the continued growth and success.
So I think that may have something to do with this next question. And because I was like getting energized, but I always like to ask, what energizes you?
Oh gosh, so many. Checking things off my list gives me more energy than anything because I'm like, got this done, got this done. So I guess productivity, but that, and then I'm a big runner, so
Oh,
checking things off my list and getting a
love
good run.
that. Like runner meaning like marathons or
Yeah,
just
I
really?
stick to half marathons, but
That's
yes.
fantastic. Oh man, I ran my first half marathon last year. So yeah. Okay. I do have one last question, but one of the questions I want to go back to just real quick, and you've given some incredible perspective and wisdom today. Any advice that you ever like received from someone that you find, I mean, it was just so good. You just continue to share that.
I mean, I feel like this piece, it could go for personal or professional, but
Yeah.
it's just that know that everything plays out the way it's supposed to.
Mhm.
And we are all going to have wins and big wins, and we are all going to have big losses at some point. But don't look at those losses as failures. Don't look at them as roadblocks or stopping points. Look at them as data points along the way that helped you get to where you are now.
That's so good. Oh man, that is absolutely gold. Okay, so here's my last question, and I love this question, Erica, and I want to ask you. So, Erica, 10 years older, she is knocking at your front door, and you go answer that door. I would love to hear what she's going to say to you.
Oh gosh, that you're going to do it and you're going to do it well, and it's not going to be easy, but keep learning, keep challenging yourself, and at the same time keep taking care of yourself so that you can take care of everybody else, but that it's going to be okay and that you're going to exceed where you thought you were going to be.
That's so good. Oh man. Well, listen, you are definitely driving in the leadership lane. And I just want to thank you for coming on the show. Hey, if someone wanted to, you mentioned earlier, connect with you, how would be the best way that they would connect?
Yeah, absolutely. They can find me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Send me a message. I'll be happy to connect. And yeah, I love connecting with people. I love talking, to anyone if they have any questions or, want to dig a little deeper on anything I may have said. 100% find me on LinkedIn.
Oh, perfect. I'm I'm definitely going to be tapping on your shoulder. Listen, I am so grateful for you coming on the show. I'm grateful for Dwayne introducing us. And I just want to say thank you for just sharing your wisdom, your perspective, and just being part of this amazing community. And so thank you so much. I appreciate you, Erica.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bruce.
Yeah. Hey, I can't wait to share. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye.